with the audio.
It's always something. Always something. I mean,
Alright, so you got TikTok up now. Hello?
can y'all hear me? TikTok isn't is working. Instagram isn't. Okay.
Yep, it's on now.
I think both are working now. I
Yep.
think Instagram and TikTok and Facebook are all
Yep.
working. Um, can y'all hear me now? Maybe. Hello. Okay. 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 Welcome back. Please do not hold me personally responsible for the tech issues and the lack of connection and the I'm just showing up and going live and then the technology is a little fickle. So I apologize. Welcome back. Hi. This is really fun because now it's working and I can see everybody. Do you have your lunch or your meal, your snack? It's really delayed. So before we got disconnected, we were talking about how this day, the Monday after the long holiday, is really hard. It's hard because we're adjusting to like being off. I think routines and schedules change during the holidays. Um, so it's hard to get back to today. And I asked some folks before we got disconnected how they were feeling, and I was hearing guilty. And I imagine that that is not a lone perspective and feeling. We are right into a brand new year, which means we're right into resolution season and the idea of it's like this new year and whatever bullshit belief and ideas we're gonna have to deal with because of that. So there could be this idea that okay, it's Monday after a holiday, right? And this pressure to want to do something to change in some way or do something different. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to do anything. It is okay if you haven't worked out yet. It's okay if you've been enjoying holiday candies and pies and treats and sides and snacks. Um, it's okay. You don't have to do anything. So I've got some comments here. I did see one. It goes really fast. I got to talk quicker. Okay. So, it's hard to sit with after eating because you feel full, right? Fullness is a human behavior or a human feeling. We all feel full. And I think that when we have this idea that fullness is bad and fullness isn't okay, and then we feel really full, right? We have that feeling, our brain starts telling us a story about that feeling. It's just a normal human feeling, and it's also a temporary normal human feeling that will go away. So how can you be kind to yourself? Why while you're waiting for that fullness to go away? So I'm also seeing a question here about who diagnoses somebody with an eating disorder. So that can kind of go a few different ways. I am a certified eating disorder specialist, which means I know I went to a lot of classes, did a lot of supervision, took a bunch of tests to know about eating disorders. And so I can diagnose somebody with an eating disorder. So a therapist can do that, a licensed professional counselor, your doctor can do that, a psychologist can do that. If anybody's wanting to kind of, if they're like watching this and they're like, do I have an eating disorder? Or, um, you know, I'm not sure I have a healthy relationship with food or my body. Go to the National Eating Disorder Association's website. They have a screening tool. Okay, so on TikTok, stop going to therapy because you thought you recovered. I always say recovery is more than the food because you can, eating is human. So when you can start nourishing yourself, um, that process becomes easier because you just start to feel better mentally, physically, emotionally as you consistently nourish yourself, right? So maybe the urges to like restrict aren't there as much, the urges to binge aren't there. You know, maybe eating disorder behaviors are gone, but then what happens is now you have to work on the self acceptance of your body. Your body changes. All of our bodies change, whether we're in recovery or not. And so, um, a lot of the work is about unfucking that relationship with your body image and learning how to appreciate yourself and accept yourself and take care of yourself without weight being on the table. Why is your anxiety keeping you from eating? Kara Nicole on Instagram. Anxiety affects our nervous system, you know, and when we have a nervous system that's like stressed out or overwhelmed or worried, that is a stress response in the body. So muscles and are tense, our heart rate gets faster, our digestion does change because we're in kind of a stress, I'm not safe response. And so, yes, food is really important to you and your body wants it. Also, um, if you're anxious, your body is thinking about how do I get you safe? How do I help you? So it's not thinking about like your appetite and food in that situation. Although sometimes eating is just what you need to improve your anxiety. So I know that sounds really confusing and really hard for people who are really confused about their hunger cues in recovery. I think it's understanding how anxiety makes you feel and how it makes you respond in your body, and then finding ways to care and manage that anxiety and caring for your health at the same time. Sometimes it's not easy to care for our health when we're really anxious and depressed. We don't value getting up and going to the bathroom. We don't value getting up and taking a shower. And so um, it's how can I care for myself? That is a language you hear me use a lot. How do I care for myself? Because it's not about doing what everybody else tells you to do, right? Like they may say, well, if you want to feel better, we all know what society tells us about how to feel better about ourselves. Your job is to learn how to take care of yourself and help you. How do you show up for yourself when you're anxious and sad and having a hard time? It's not that you weren't all in your recovery. It's that you. I think body image is is one of those later steps of recovery. When you're in recovery, you're just thinking about how do I improve my relationship with food so that I can be nourished, right? Like that's a major priority. So sometimes improving your body image is important to you, but it's more important to work on that nutrition first. And I see clients feel better quickly after they start eating. And so it's really easy to be like, I'm good. I'm feeling better. I'm not worrying about these things anymore. People have backed off, so I'm good. It's easy to want to quit their recovery at that time. I see it all the time. But then I see people come back because they still have the body image piece. Lauren Tay, 11. I've been trying really hard to allow myself to eat foods you crave in moderation, but you feel guilty. Mm. For what? What are you doing wrong? Not listening to your eating disorder? Great. I know that feels hard at first. It's like this eating disorder. It's this person in your brain. It's like a devil on your shoulder, right? And if you don't listen to it, it beats you up, criticizes you, shames you, makes you feel really bad. Recovery is about learning to, I don't want to say ignore, understand those thoughts and why you might be telling yourself that story, and then how you can have compassion for yourself for telling yourself that story, and then how do you, I don't want to say change the story, but what do you learn from the story so that you can do different and better for yourself going forward. Brittany Ann Murphy, you're amazing. Thank you. Hi, Shauna. You feel like no matter if you see stuff about body positivity or body shaming, both make me aware of your body. How you look. I know that's kind of a problem with the body positive movement is we're still centering that bodies are supposed to look a certain way. Knock that shit off. We need body diversity. We need to see more of it. We need it on our feeds. We need it in our media. We need it in these lives. We need it in the people that you look at, the people that you hang out with. We need more body diversity. The problem is that we're all used to seeing a certain body size and type. So we make the assumption that's just, again, the story that we start framing, that we start telling ourselves. But if we start to see more diversity and that bodies look all kinds of fucking different ways, and sometimes they have, like, they're not perfect, they're flawed. And if we start seeing more of that, we're gonna have an easier time letting go of this belief that bodies are supposed to look a certain way. You started working with your team, but it feels like it's not that bad. You're just overreacting. Amanda Rose on TikTok. That's a normal thing that people say in recovery. We try to like gaslight ourselves and tell ourselves that we can't, like, we don't deserve help or we're too sick or whatever. But let me tell you, that's not a normal thought. Healthy people think, wait a second, I don't feel right here. Something's off. I want to feel better. We're not sick. Healthy people don't sit around and think, I'm sick. Maybe I'm not sick enough. Maybe, right? If you're thinking that, you're sick. Get help. Hi, Stacy. Welcome. That recovery life, you are going to have a lot of hunger after restricting. And it's scary only because that sick part of your brain is telling you that it's scary. But there's nothing to be worried about. Eat, 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 eat. And you're going to be like, oh my God, right? Your body, it's going to allow you to get full, and you can learn how to pay attention to that fullness cue to stop eating and to take care of yourself. I wish I would have gotten help 2 years ago when I first noticed my eating was disordered. Lauren Taylor, I wish that for you too, but can we take a moment to talk about why that's hard? There are a lot of you here reporting and talking about how you're having a hard time eating, and several of your names are familiar to me at this point. I'm so excited that y'all join me all the time. But I know people are in relapse or people are really struggling and unable to get help. Excuse me, afraid to get help, not feeling not sick enough to get help, and all of those are lies. All of those are thought distortions. It is really hard to get help for an eating disorder because It can be expensive. There aren't resources available. And so that's why I'm here, right? That's why I go live, is so that you all can come together and talk and say, hey, I feel this way too, and see you're not alone. But that's also why I created the Recovery Academy, so that you can get support and legit, like not some skinny, in social media influencer who is, selling a made up cookie cutter plan, right? And saying this is going to help you in your relationship with food. That's not going to help you. That's only another form of like disordered stuff, right? So the Recovery Academy is a legit, evidence based, professional teaching platform where I teach you everything about eating disorders, how to recover from one. I teach you what I teach my clients, and you get worksheets and tools and all of that. Plus, you get a support community. We have groups, we have hangouts, all of that at the Recovery Academy. And right now, I have a really huge sale going on where you can be a part of the community for free. So recovery-academy.com. That's my shameless plug. I don't feel ashamed. So, any tips for starting working out, eating healthy again without becoming restrictive? Yes, Sarah, good question. This is something I'm really excited to talk about. I have a hour-long course with worksheets and journaling for this very thing. How can you be in eating disorder recovery and exercise? Can I exercise and be in eating disorder recovery? How do I do it safely and not get into those disordered patterns? For those who don't know me, I so before I've been a therapist for a really long time, and started my career at Timberline Knolls. I helped start that program, and then I went and kind of did some other things in the field. Did a lot of trauma counseling, a lot of trauma counseling, and that was really my first specialization, was trauma. I loved it, and I was terrible at self care, and I developed vicarious trauma, right? Burnout, compassion fatigue, and I tried to cope with that and developed orthorexia and had an exercise addiction that took me down a really dark place with exercise and my body. And after now, so I had to take I talk about my story in this course in more detail, but I had to take a pretty long break from physical exercise to heal that relationship. But I do think you can have a healthy, I don't want to use the word healthy. I think you can have body movement as a part of your life and be safely in recovery from an eating disorder. So, yes, sports players, athletes are highly at risk for developing an eating disorder. Athletes are some of my most favorite people to work with in my individual private practice. Just, well, I love everybody, first of all. But athletes, I like, we want things to be so black and white, all or nothing, right or wrong, yes or no. And I love helping rigid thinking become more fluid and flexible and open. And I think that's fun to do with athletes, um, who are, have to be sometimes very black and white in your sport, and black and white in how you like show up and compete. So, yes, college volleyball player, yeah, I'll work with volleyball players. Track, it's a lot of runners, swimmers. I'm in Texas, so I think, I see a lot of that. Ballet is a big one. Figure skating, ice skating. So all athletes are at risk, higher risk for an eating disorder. But if you're an athlete, don't freak out. Um, the that doesn't mean you're going to get an eating disorder. It, but the sports where it's very like body focused, and even higher risk, ballet, gymnastics. I'm watching, what is that show called? Pretty Little Things. Any Pretty Little Things watchers on here? Maybe no one should because it's cut. There are some triggering things. So if you watch it, please trigger warning. No one watches that? Lots of athletes here. Hi, y'all. Okay, so if you're going to watch Pretty Little Things, if you were a fan of Pretty Little Liars, huge fan. This is like a spinoff or another version of that. Just please be careful. There is a character who has an eating disorder and they show it. So just be careful of that. But also, like ballet, watching that show, the description of how they have to truly like move and shape their bodies to perform um, makes the right, so very body focused sports, high risk of developing an eating disorder. So, um, and a lot of like body image stuff can come up with that. Maybe you're not just maybe you're not acting on behaviors. Brittany Ann Murphy, is it in your head or is it physical? Um, Sometimes we just have like the thoughts that we tell ourselves or the story that we tell ourselves, and we have this really inner critic that gets really nasty and mean. um, so is it in your head? The thinking part is, but an eating disorder is also a disease, right? It's a disease of the brain. So it will, I read an article not long ago, and it was kind of like, we don't know if the, what came first, you know, chicken or the egg kind of a situation. We can, they're doing brain studies on people with eating disorders, and it is a brain disease. It does affect and change the chemistry and biology of the brain. We can see that, um, we know that nutrition and lack of nutrition can affect the brain, right? And so, um, is it physical? Yes. And is it mental? Yes, right? Because it is a mental illness. It affects the chemistry of your brain, which affects the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way that you perceive and understand information. Like with food, right? It distorts how you see food and understand food. That's why it's not as easy as just eating. You can't just eat. Your brain has um, mixed distorted messages about this food, so it's really hard. We have to heal the brain. You have to heal the brain. You can totally do that. Oh, sports. I know athletes. I remember in high school friends who did like powerlifting, and the things that I saw them do with I don't know how they're like approved sports, honestly, for teenagers. Teenagers should not be engaging in those types of food behaviors to play a freaking game or list some things or wrestle. I know some of it is about safety, I do, but baby Bojack, any tips on going vegetarian vegan without restricting? Oh no. Hmm. Okay. Go to my YouTube channel. I have a video on this, being a vegan or being vegetarian in recovery. Please work with a dietitian, an eating disorder dietitian, not not a social media influencer who says they have a nutrition certificate. I want you to work with a registered dietitian, and if possible, a certified eating disorder registered dietitian. Can you be vegan and be in recovery? Watch my YouTube video for the answer to that. And if you're going to do it, please just work with a professional because it's not easy to do. Stacy says don't do the vegan thing. It is a very fine line, slippery slope. Many people do it healthy and well, and it's not restrictive and great. But if you are in eating sort of recovery, do it. Don't do it alone. You're welcome. You're doing eating treatment at college, and your parents have no idea. You wouldn't be the first time I've heard that. You know they're certified